Oh, yeah.
No, it's asking.
Pete and I discussed that earlier.
Why is it not there?
Just taking it again. It just never.
Hey Jenny, you got it.
I do.
I got one, Jenny. I know I asked that last time I remember.
Anybody else need one?
Yeah.
Just compliments.
Let's just see what's going, if it's live.
On this one?
No, yeah.
Anyone else?
Wherever, yeah.
I'm good.
Zach.
If it's not.
I was just telling her,
Got it.
like, the only time I need is on Sunday.
And then just start.
Now, Pam, it's kind of like that lathe out there. Antique.
Yeah.
It's not.
This is my pen.
No. It's not. There's nothing to do
I
about it.
just lose things, so it's better to figure out to get that.
Yeah. I always carry one. It's fairly old.
Just start it.
Had that ranch
No.
over 6 miles
Yeah.
above routes.
Just trying to find you.
He never drove a truck or somebody could Terry or somebody wasn't there to take him or hitch a ride.
X out of this.
He never would drive a truck. He'd just get up and get on an old bay horse he had, ride 6 mile and irrigate or whatever he was doing all day. Then ride it home. Old Bill. I keep referring to myself as flawed. With all this stuff, I'm still riding old Bill.
Get on the horse.
I should be in the truck, but I'm riding old Bill. I
Get the
don't know how to
connection.
drive. Do you remember him at all?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, him and Jeannie always go around.
I don't know a password.
But Jeannie drove.
Yeah.
Okay,
You guys don't know, I don't know.
I've never had to connect it before.
okay, just leave it.
They
and
were
make
old.
that bigger.
Really?
There you go.
Oh, hell, I don't want to be on it.
Don't talk. It won't go to you.
Keep talking.
Ready for the start?
I'm waiting for him to start.
Want me to start it?
Keep going.
Can't get away from the eyes.
Always fellas.
It's like that for
All right, well, welcome everyone to the board meeting today, December 20th. Thanks everyone for being here. Present are Mrs. Corning, Mrs. Johnson, Mr. McKee, Mr. Lamb, myself, Rick Walmsley, Mr. Corning, Mr. Savy, Superintendent Lamborn, and our principals, Mr. Larson and Mr. Taylor. We'll start off with some opening remarks. Corning, Mr. Savy will lead us in the pledge.
I was minding my own business this morning. There's a call for us. He asked me, most people aren't that interested in my thoughts, so he asked me if I'd do a Christmas poem. Called the Christmas Miracle. They stood there together in the gathering dust, and the cowboy asked questions. Told him to trust. You done the chores, fed the calves and brushed your horse. Your mother will think we're lost, stuck or worse. The boy answered the query, Daddy, it's all done. I brushed him high like it. They walked to the truck, snow crunched beneath their feet. The boy climbed in first, stood in the middle of the seat. They rode a while in silence, headed towards home, and the boy made a request. Daddy, tomorrow is Christmas. Will you tell me that story? All about the Christmas miracle? So I looked at his son under his hat. I'd sooner tell you one you've not heard. Let me do that. It's a sure enough Christmas miracle. Lord will make you feel bad. You're old enough to know sometimes joy comes to things that are sad. You've seen that scar on my chest, runs right down the middle. You aren't much more than a baby, still awful little. My heart, it quit working, they thought I might die. But God gave me another chance, so I don't know why. The doctor said a transplant was the only way you'd ever have a daddy to help you stay, so they put me on the list and we started to wait. Even by Christmas, it'd be too late. See, we waited forever, and then came a call, the gift was to me meant it all. Bad wreck in Wyoming, that a miracle was needed, was easy to see, but when the miracle came, God did it for me. The cowboy paused in his story to wipe his eyes, to see some to save me, a good man had to die. I know he had sons and a wife that he loved, but he loved the mountains and the sky above. Now when I see a sunset or feel rain on my face, or ride a good horse, give me wild deer on the chase, I think of that cowboy and all that he lost, but the death of how much it cost. That's my Christmas miracle and also yours too, how the loss of another started my life. That Wyoming cowboy gave all that he had to help the right call. The son, you see, Christ did the same thing for us all.
Pretty finished.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, does anyone have any questions on the minutes from our last meeting? I'll make a motion to approve those minutes. Okay, we have a motion, we have a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any motion carries. Have a chance to look at the bills, I accept the motion to pay the bills.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. All right, moving on to our action items. Policy 114.
Okay, basically, there's one document that wasn't sent out till yesterday. That's dealing with this. We've got in our policy, 114 and 500. We did it a few years ago. At that time, we thought, excuse me, had everything covered that we needed to with student privacy. About 3 weeks ago, excuse me, we get a big survey from state office wanting us to say yes and yes and yes to all these things we had. And we got looking at our policy. Some of it wasn't there. So it was kind of an interesting process. I called Carol Lear, who does some legal work for us. She also serves on the state school board. Carol saw the survey request. She got a little fired up. So then she lined up a meeting between Mrs. Cornea and Mrs. Johnson and I, and the people at the state office who had sent the survey out. And it was amazing how accommodating they were with Carol sitting there on the line. And she asked a lot of questions. Why do we need this? Why do we need that? And so I told you when we sent the packet out, I would have you more than we've got. But after talking with them, Carol told them January 10th, I think, we're sitting down with the gentleman in charge of the state office to go through some of the other stuff, because it was a little beyond what they had been asking. Right? And they've got some stuff to help us. So the metadata dictionary, we won't even talk about till next meeting, is what they want us to do. And in our current policy, we've got about 4 things in there. Because when we did our original policy, what they were asking for is any of the kind of software that we were using that provided personally identifiable information on students, which was more than just name. It had to be name, birth date, or name, student number and stuff. So we tried to minimize that. So we had a few pieces of software included in our metadata dictionary. After we had the meeting with the general state office, they basically want all of our software listed in there, because his answer to me was it's on there, people can still find it, try and get to it. I'm giving a long thing here, but I was fairly uncomfortable with that because of the message that it sends to parents in terms of your student information is just out there floating. In reality, we're very careful not to give information. So where we're kind of at with that, we're still going to have to have a dictionary listed under resources instead of in policy, so that every time we add a piece of software, we don't have to change policy. They agreed that was okay. Again, that was different than the last time we did it. So we'll finish up with this, but the policy that came yesterday in your packets, basically it talks about what we have to do to be under the governance plan. So it addresses that. And then it talks about the expungement process. And basically, this expungement process is a long way. On student records, there are certain points of data that can't be taken off. Grades, their age, birth date, and so forth. But let's say, and we try to be very careful with this in our district, that unless it's a major safe schools violation, we don't put it on the student's record. Some districts put almost everything on there. And so a parent could call and say, I want my student record expunged so that years down the road, if it's sent to an employer, university, or so forth, that discipline referral doesn't show up on the record. So basically, as you look through that, that's what all those things are saying. Parents have the right to request to have their students' record expunged, but there's certain points of data that can't be expunged, in grades and so forth. And it just walks through and references back to code of how we do that. Again, in our case, I don't think we've got to have it in the policy to meet what this guy wants. But, and I've gotten in trouble before because the state saying, anytime you discipline a kid, it needs to be in SIS. And we've pushed back saying, no, if the principal talks to a kid about a minor violation that we handle between us and the parent, we don't need that on that student's permanent record. Someday they might want to fire me for that, but if we have a safe schools violation, we'll put it on their record. But short of that, I don't think that they're kids and they do dumb things and make silly mistakes. And that doesn't need to be on a record. It's going to be sent to an employer years down the road. So if we could maybe have a motion to adopt this, then next meeting, hopefully we're going to come back with this big long list of all the software, and most of it's already been vetted by the state. It's on their list. We won't vet everything, but it was very helpful to call Carol. She saved us a lot of work. She kind of let them. She asked them some real questions like why. But it was a good meeting. So.
And they did answer very well.
Yeah.
So we were able to get our questions answered. Also, along those lines, the policy 516, some of that information will be in policy 114, correct?
Right.
Just to clarify that.
So and maybe we just table this, you can look at it and not even deal with any of it till next time. We can do that. Because we thought there was, because it was supposed to be done by the end of December, this survey, but we've got till we're right.
Yeah.
We got the green light to
We did.
postpone, so maybe we just postpone it all.
What do you guys like to do? This table.
We'll have the full policy next month.
Okay. Your motion to table that, or what do we,
We'll just table those three policies.
these three policies, okay? Do we need a motion to do that? Okay. Motion second, all in favor?
All right.
Aye. Okay, motion carries. Okay. Right on the staffing.
We present the name of middle school basketball coach, Cody Reed, the middle school seventh grade basketball coach. Anything you want to say to that, Mr. Morrison?
No, not accepted. Right down the wire.
It started
And
yesterday.
Artie's helping as well, but he wants to be a volunteer to work with his eighth grade in his class. Sixth graders are there practicing. They probably won't be playing this year because the number of seventh and eighth graders. So that's the reason why, and that was an issue we had last year. Caused us some grief. Sixth graders. So coaches would like to just seventh and eighth grade, and they have like
So a lot of that just depends on the numbers. Sixth grade,
yes.
numbers are down and seven.
Will sixth graders still be going to practice or
Yes.
can they go?
No, they're still invited to go to practices. And they are.
As Rick and I have processed that, just so the board members, I think, understand where we're coming from. Because some community members could be upset about the inconsistency of that. Wait a minute, they got to play football, they get to wrestle, but they're not going to get to play basketball. How can you justify that? And it's hard to justify it, except in basketball, when we've got the kind of numbers we've got with eighth and seventh grade, then sixth grade really aren't needed, and then you just create chaos trying to get that many kids in and out of games, and then nobody's happy. Now, the only ones that aren't happy is the sixth grader. That sounded flippant, but you get what I'm saying. The reps and the numbers that they've got out of the middle school right now, trying to get that many kids, even though saying into those games would be impossible. You take up their Saturdays, all in the Big Piney, Pinedale, they never get the game, and they say, well, why'd my kid waste the whole day, interrupt our family time? You knew they weren't going to get in before you left. So that's our logic, as illogical as it may sound. But I think in the long run, it saves problems. So it creates them now. When it comes, it was wrestling, we didn't have many kids out. We were welcoming sixth graders. Football, we needed them. Basketball, how many kids do you have out? Off the top of your head.
There's 30. I think there's 12.
Seventh and eighth?
Per grade, seventh and eighth, each one of those.
So 30 is not even counting sixth
And
graders
then, no, there's 30 something in the sixth grade.
with
So I think
the.
there's like 24, 25. seventh and eighth.
Oh,
So when the problem is the numbers, you 5 on a court. It's a numbers game. Wrestling, the weights are, there's 20 something weights. The body got them on each side. It's just a numbers game. And we, I think we learned from last year that sort of creates issues when you start playing kids up and numbers maybe don't justify that. So that's where I think we got into some issues last year.
so there's what, like 6 or 7 sixth graders?
There's, it depends how many of them come out. There's probably potential for 10 or 12 of them. It's not.
This year, but maybe next year.
It looked like there was, I believe, 35 or so kids in the gym last night. So,
Good that there's 3 coaches. A lot of kids.
And thank you for that new building, which makes it so that's doable 35 in that old gym. It's hard to get many
Are
reps.
they using both gyms?
Right now they're using the gym, they can.
Let's sure work good with the girls' basketball. Went to a number of games. And they used both gyms, playing 2 games at a time. I think we forgot real quick what it was like to use just one gym because it seems to.
And the girls worked out okay, because the numbers were smaller, 7th grade numbers. So the 6th graders, they actually would just rotate so many 6th graders they designated for playing this week. So they knew when they were playing, what games they were going to. They rotated them in. Worked out well. It's just with the boys, there's a lot of them just.
And somebody will probably hit you, so we want you to understand. Again, consistency there, but the rationale behind
So we need a motion to approve.
Jody Reed. I'll make that
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
The other thing under staffing there, talked a couple of months ago, accepted Mr. Lynn's resignation letter. Timeline to replace him. What I would propose to the board is that we advertise that position beginning in January. Leave it open so that people have time to make application. Hire that position 1st of February, so that they've got time, whoever gets the position, to notify their employer and get that the time needed, and then begin that in March. Some would say, well, that's kind of expensive to have 2 for that long. My response to that is a couple of things. Number one, I think in the long run, will save a lot of hassles. With those guys who've been with Rick long enough to learn these road mount heaters and all that sort of thing. We spend a fraction of the money that we used to spend bringing people to Logan to work on heaters, electrical, and that kind of stuff. We used to have Western Mechanical over here all the time. They charge you for them if they need help until they get back. So I think that's good. We also, in the summertime, always used to hire some help to help Mr. Irving back in the day. When Rick came, he just kind of said, let me see if I can handle it all. The last couple of summers, we've had so much going on that Rick actually needed some help. So I think having that person once, you know, if they're going to learn, and there's some things with some walks and stuff that keep them busy. So I think that person's going to be busy. He's not just going to be following Rick around like a puppy dog, but he'll also be able to work. He or she, I said he had admin meeting the other day, got cussed. He or she will be able to learn the ropes and do it. And then Mr. Lynn retires in October. Hopefully it'll be good. You know, and I think, remember when we hired Mrs. Johnson, quite a little overlap time, Mr. Clark, and I think that time was very well spent. It would have been a frustrating thing to walk in 2 weeks notice, expect to know how to do it. I think this is about the same way. So if we could, I don't know that needs to be adopted, if we could just have a consensus to go with that time frame. And then the other thing is, can't have a quorum, but would like to have a board member or 2 serve on that committee. We say, well, gee, it's going to be a big deal.
What committee?
To hire the maintenance replacement. And I don't ask you to be on those often. And again, if the board doesn't think you want to be, that's fine too. We'll just come back with a recommendation. But if you'd like to be, because like I said, I anticipate a number of local applicants and a number of unhappy local applicants.
I think it'd be good personally. Yeah.
So I'd suggest anybody that's got too many friends with a volunteer.
Nice try.
So we need a motion on opening up that job or hire.
I think it maybe a motion to open the position.
I'll make that motion in that position.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Anything else in your staff?
No, I had a portion there at the bottom, but thought I would be ready to make a recommendation there, but that's gonna have to wait till next month.
Okay. Information items. We don't have a chance to look at the homeschool requests. Yeah, so. Okay. USDA.
So, under USDA, obviously the convention's coming up. Don't forget that. And Jenny, you've got the rooms all lined up, so we're good to go.
Yes.
Anything else? Any questions about convention?
Thank you.
The other thing I kind of wanted to walk through with you, and I don't want to spend too much of your time, but well, a month ago, we put in the JLC, kind of their pamphlet, things that they were wanting to do. This month, they sent out an additional form that tied some money to it. And if we could just walk through that, this form here. Got that.
This was what was created down that meeting, what, in August or
August,
September?
So the WPU increase, they're asking for more than they've ever asked for there. But I think a couple of reasons why they did that, trying to get more competitive in terms of the teacher shortage, well, the employee shortage, not just the teacher shortages, bus drivers, aides and everything else. So we're trying to do that. And I was glad they added support staff to that. I think that's important. It's not just for teachers, because getting aides is getting harder and harder. Full day kindergarten, the third one down, that could be huge for us. There's been a lot of discussion on that, because last year they came very close to passing a bill saying every district would have to do full day.
I was gonna say, like, I thought this was brought up last year.
And while educationally, I don't think anybody's really pushing back on that. Those big districts on the Wasatch Front that are full don't have classrooms to put them. If you put full day, they would have to have 10 or 12 classrooms because everything's full now. And they're doing split sessions. They're just saying we place to put them if you did it. And yet educationally, people are there. I think the NEPO, I should say, superintendent told me how many classrooms he would have to add in his district to do it. Say something like that. For us, we're already doing full day. So now if they'll approve it this way, instead of just a lump sum that's given to you and said you've got to do it. If they put it on the WPU, then it will be incentive for those districts that are not doing full day kindergarten to figure out a way to do it. For us, at Ogden and several others that are already doing full day kindergarten, will now be fully funded for it. Right now, we only get half funded of 55.
0.55, yeah.
0.55 WPUs for kindergarten. So the district is making up the difference in terms of funding that. This would give us full funding for kindergarten. And I feel strongly that it's one of the best things educationally we've people argue against it, taking kids away from home too early and yada, yada, but they're away from home for a half day, whole day, doesn't seem to make a lot of difference. Kids are coming, a lot of kids are coming less well prepared, they haven't been read to at home as much, all those things that kindergarten readiness. And they say they wear out, it's just too long a day for them. After the first week, kindergarten kids are pretty good. I don't see a Rick, your kindergarten mind, it's just
First week. After that.
that's the gig, and they do it really well, and getting done what we want to get done in a half day. Get started, you go to breakfast, recess, lunch, done. You don't get a lot in there in the afternoon. It really gives you some time to, and again, when we did it, we did have a little pushback. And remember that it is optional. Full day kindergarten is optional. If you don't want to send your kid only but a half day, we accommodate that. And kindergarten is not mandatory, so you don't even have to send your kid to kindergarten if you don't want. But the first couple of years we did it, we had some that opted for the half day. I haven't done it in Southbridge Elementary. I don't know, years, West half day. I don't think they have it Northridge. You haven't been there, but nobody this year's doing that day.
I haven't heard anything derogatory. I just heard really, really good things that parents really like the full day care.
And I think that's gonna go this year. I think there'll be funding for that. I just hope they'll put it on the WPU and not put it as a line item, because the line item will hurt those districts that don't have room to put it. And they'll be violating the law basically, because they're not holding kindergarten as funding. And we're a place to put them.
What's this last part here on vouchers? What is those all efforts that move the public education funds, private interests, vouchers, tax credits, and
Okay, come down there, that's right at the end. There, those of you that, now I'm gonna editorialize a little bit here. So for years, there have been voucher bills, they'll bring them up so that if you want kids, send your kids to private school or charter school, you get money back from the state.
they basically get that WPU fund.
We've fought that forever, saying, you know, if people choose to send their kid to a private school, that's great. But I'm not sure that you want to editorialize. I don't feel like you ought to pull the money out of public education in order to fund your choice. And they argue, well, that's my choice. It is your choice, but then you pay for your choice. The thing in the bill last year that really scared me was they also put a piece in that if you were homeschooled, you could get a voucher money for homeschool. Again, if it's a legitimate homeschool and you're buying quality curriculum, there'd be some argument for that. In some situations, can't name any names, people have said we're homeschooling, but all they did was keep their kid home. They didn't school any. And I'm afraid if they put money to that, and people can keep them home, make money doing it, and not, and we have no say on what goes on in those home schools. That could get way out of hand. So that really scares me where that could be. Now, there might be some that will push hard enough to leave the homeschool piece off and just do the other, but there's going to be a push. Where this gets even more frustrating for me is that if you watched the news last week, the governor proposed that big teacher increase, $6,000 increase for teacher salaries. That's all made the news on the governor's budget. I think that he's there. But I'm pretty sure I've been in 2 different meetings now where the underlying intent of that is they're going to tie that to vouchers. If you want the 6,000 for teachers, then don't oppose vouchers. Because we have always, as superintendent's group and UA, all those education groups that oppose vouchers. So now they're going to say, well, we offered you $6,000 raise and you turned it down. Political move that really bothers me. Now, the governor did say that they need to be ran separately. My prediction, and Jenny, I think you've heard the same thing, is they'll run them together. They'll be married, which is going to put us in put me personally anyway, in a tough spot, because they certainly don't want to oppose increase in teacher salaries. But I certainly, and I guess if I had to stick my neck in the guillotine and they're connected, I would probably say I'm not going to be held hostage by this, because in the long run, we're going to lose more than we gain. But it's going to be a scary thing. And I don't know how much tax credit they're going to give them vouchers. That they haven't put a figure to that yet that I've seen. But I think it's going to be substantial. Any other comments on that?
That homeschool thing, that just looks like an opportunity for some parents to receive a little financial gain by not educating their kids.
Yeah, the hard part that I see on it, like, is that with this WPU money that comes to the school, I mean, there's a whole lot of regulations and policies and whatnot that the school has to make sure that that money is being spent correctly. And you just go ahead and toss it over to a parent without any regulation, without any whatnot. Because I can see their point of wanting, to have that choice, right? But to me, there would need to be part of that same amount of eye over that, watch over
Accountability.
accountability. And the police said,
Well, our basic stance is they're paying twice.
Yeah.
And they are.
There's no question.
But what they don't acknowledge is economies of scale. They have schools dropping one student out, it takes the money away, but it doesn't drop the costs.
Right. The other thing that bothers me a lot about it is we've got a lot of people in our county, and it's the same everywhere, whose kids have been through the system and they still pay the taxes. And their argument is, I'm not sending my kids to public school, so why should I pay for it? Well, if we adopt that in too big a scale, and the only people we charge for public education are the ones that actually have kids in the system, it would implode immediately, because you're still paying, Mr. Lamb's still paying, Pete's still paying.
and I'm grateful you're paying.
And that's part of society, is that we pay it forward.
It's a benefit, it's us too.
Yeah.
And then they will come.
Exactly. So you might need to hire a truck driver, maybe sign.
Be honest. And I know that, to me, if you carry that logic out, the only ones should pay are the ones that have kids in the system. The system couldn't exist without that immediately.
Well, we're all training their replacements is what we're doing.
The other thing on a couple of those on the bottom of that, the educator return to work options. We're making an effort right now. If you retire, you can't come back. Well, you can come back if you make it not very much money, but come back and work if you can. And I used to be in that camp. If you're going to retire retire and get out of here, don't be double dipping is the term we used to use. I've had to change because as I talk to other people, and we've got some of it here, we're just so short of teachers and employees. Got to do something to get them. This year, I told you before, Washington School District started school with 150 on-field aid jobs. Just in special education. Bus drivers, they can't get them. If you go to any of the cities and state, you see bus driving advertisements. Evanston's had a bus sitting there with "we need drivers" forever. And we're thinking, and people are saying it, you know, maybe a teacher doesn't even come back as a teacher, but maybe a teacher that retired didn't want to work full time would come back as a halftime aide and teach reading, help teach reading in the morning. Or somebody quits. Yeah, I wouldn't mind driving bus. I do that, but I don't want to be teaching full time. But now it precludes it. So some would come back as teachers. Some could come back in other areas, but we need to make it so that they can do that. So if they used to be able to, it got abused. I think it got more abused. At least this is the excuse they give us. Some of the other sectors besides education, the chief of police would retire one day and never leave his office. They'd be in retirement now. It was the chief of police the next day. So I can see why they did it. So maybe some of the legislation we would agree to is you can't come back to your same position. Even if they went so far as you had to change districts, that wouldn't help us a lot, but that would really help Wasatch Front districts. Like ran it with the work with George. They're just so short of staff that we're trying to do something. And that'll probably cycle again, you know, just like those kind of things do. But right now, there's a tremendous staff shortage. Mental health is,
I'm sorry, do you think that's a money issue or?
it's partly a money issue. That's why you get the price up. But I think part of it's just an employment issue. You know, everywhere you go, they've got, we need worker signs up. McDonald's.
Says one. Give it up. I mean, that was in business when I went to college and they couldn't find any help. Couldn't get any employees, so they had to quit. That's been 40 some years.
And in my industry, in the tech industry, it's the opposite. It's in a freeze and then a fall, or a lot of tech companies are laying people off.
Really?
Okay, anything else?
Maybe over lunch we can talk about Elon and see what you think. Probably not an open meeting, but I'd sure like to get your take on it.
Anything else on USDA?
If you.
Oh, you're
mind
listening.
listening to me.
No, keep going.
This local governance issue, you might think it's not a big deal. Was it 2 years ago? They used to run for the state school board, nonpartisan. It was nonpartisan. This year it was partisan. I think that affected a lot who got on the state board. And we're trying hard to keep local elections nonpartisan. So that you vote for the person, not party. So, and I think that's a good thing. You know, like this year in Rich County, basically the election is over after primaries. So, the co-curricular fee thing. Again, this is in response to, there's a significant group, and I agree with them, that say we shouldn't be charging students fees for curricular things. Now, we're using TSSA money So we're not doing that, but a lot of districts are. And they're saying, this group that's pushing, eliminate all fees, yeah, that's the agreement with them. Put the money in to cover what we're charging parents for, so I don't know where that will end up. The impact fees, Wasatch County is the one that's been the most vocal in pushing that. But any of the districts that are experiencing significant growth, cities and the counties can charge impact fees. School districts can't, and yet school districts are heavily affected when new developments go in because schools to put them in. No way to generate any money off these impact fees. I don't think that is probably, again, some of those districts are working real hard to get that to happen. But the lobby on Capitol Hill, the developers is real strong, so I don't think that'll get it.
I doubt that those either, yeah. I mean, because the argument to that is, well, they're paying property taxes and whatnot.
Yeah.
So,
Any other questions on those? I took maybe more time. It's going to be an interesting session. Sessions are most interesting when there's extra money or no money. And right now there's extra money. So how much they're going to give back, tax refunds, and how they're going to distribute what's there would be an interesting session because I think there's no question there's a surplus in the state budget and how they decide to deal with that surplus. I think it's almost harder for legislators to have extra money than no money because when it's no money, you just say no. When it's extra, it's, well, you get some, but you don't.
this certified tax rate, so that would change the tax rate each year to include inflation amounts of that tax rate that shows up on the property taxes, essentially, right? It would, so like this year, we had to go through truth taxation. Had that been in there, we wouldn't have had to, basically. That was likely.
Exactly. So I
But-
That's what they're talking about.
But it
there.
will still show, because each year it would show that increase in taxes, correct?
but the state would take the hit instead of you guys.
Well, we'd still take it, because you know how people are, they don't know how to read their
But,
property taxes.
but when they call, we could say, well, that's at the state board level. Just like we do now.
Did we ever figure out, this is maybe kind of off topic, but remember us talking about when we have, there's that balance between how much we take locally. Because if we take too much, they'll just take it back, right? We have to figure out how that balance works. We need to figure that out. That concerns me. Because I want to go through truth and taxation just to get it taken away.
Right. We'll try to figure something out. It's a pendulum based on our programs and how much we're getting federally and state.
It's not just.
It's not a simple.
Not a simple calculation.
Oh. Park City has to write a check back.
Go ahead, yeah.
But we've never had to do that.
No.
Well. Back in Charles Day, we did. Elevation. Take money from here. Stand on the walls that's come, so they can build more. Schools and stuff.
And the state's not gonna take our local funding ever. I mean, we can raise that
What
to
do
the
they-
max.
So what do they have to send back then? They send back this funding that the state sent?
Well, because they generate it naturally. They generate more than the state allotment
Oh,
naturally.
I see.
So they have to pay back.
So the
because
state
it's
doesn't send them any
equalization.
money and they bring in so much, they have
Right.
to send.
Right, because they try to equalize the districts.
Almost County. You saw it years ago, got out of there. didn't you?
Foresight.
Well,
There's an issue though, with everything going on there.
and
I think we should have, right?
it's, and Wasatch, you know, they tried to pass a bond 2 years ago, failed. They just completely outgrown that high school. This year, they're building a school out of capital and borrowing money, well, like Delta told us how they do. They're going, all was just afraid. They went back for a bond, failing it. We can't put it off that for more years.
Yeah, so someone's got the same problem.
It's hard. So I give, I guess, kudos to our community and kudos to the board that our community supported on. It was the timing people, yeah, they just did it based on other districts. It's not a given. This last election outline had a big bond fail. So we're gonna get back. It's not a give me that you're gonna get that money. All sweater. Wasatch just said we can't risk it again, so we're gonna have to figure out a different way to do it.
Yeah, it's people, I don't like to grow, you know, most I know the people have been. They don't want to pass the ball. Those two, but what are you gonna do with the kids? You know? I mean, I understand where Paul's coming from too. So,
It's tough deal.
yeah.
Any more on USDA?
Just again, an open invitation, any of you starting when the session starts. They'll have a Thursday 4 o'clock meeting. With just rural schools and legislators. Sometimes that's really good, sometimes not very good. And then Friday at 11, they'll have the joint legislative council, school board members, and you're welcome to join. For the one of those.
They will have to.
Every Thursday. and Friday.
Oh,
Then the day on the hill,
what's that date on that?
Have they sent it out to us?
yeah, they put it out. I didn't write it in here. I'll get you the date. See if everybody goes up. But in my opinion, typically that's when we're supposed to be there. With more bells and whistles and less meat and potatoes. But we'll get that word out.
Okay. UHSAA.
So reclassification happened. So you can see the region that we're in changed a little bit. Mount Vernon and Utah Schools of the Deaf and Blind have been in our region, Region 22. But the request of Wendover and Tinnick, they petitioned UHSAA and asked to come to our region. We didn't fight that at all because it put Mount Vernon and USDB in Region 21. And there'll be a little extra travel because we have not gone to Tinnick, but we have gone, not home and home with Wendover. Played them every year. They came here where they were last week. And next year we've gone there. So we've gone to Wendover with both boys and girls for a number of years. I think it makes our region stronger than Mount Vernon. You want to tell us about the Mount Vernon game a couple of weeks ago?
Was the problem with Mount Vernon, everybody independent. In boys, and so you didn't ever know what you had. One of our schools, just DB, it's just hard. 4 to 60, we were trying real hard on school. But I think it's worth noting ICS petition to go to 2. We lost all three of those.
Or competitive.
Yeah, the Wendover games were, we won, but barely. Overtime with the boys, with those girls, it's gonna be good competition. I think. And we've got a relationship with them. Played them one time.
We were a bubble school in terms of our enrollment. If you look at that page that shows all sports except football, we're big enough that we could have petitioned up. They allowed us as a local school to petition up or stay. We petitioned to stay. They granted that, so. They went down. Made an eloquent presentation, stay and granted.
White horse is a bubble.
The 8-person football is going to continue. Gunnison will not be part of the 8-player championship thing because the reason they allowed Gunnison to look at the numbers, they're certainly not one of the smaller 2As. But to their success and everything, they allowed them. So there will be 8. Now in the 8-person football, Diamond Ranch is going to have. St. Joseph is going to have. Altamont is going to have. So those teams coming in, that'll be enough for the player league. And so Gunnison the next 2 years. And you know, our proposal would be to the board. They didn't put that in a region. So very much like this year, placing the games with once you play it and come together for playoff. And we would like to stay in the Wyoming League. Remember when we got in there, we made a 2-year commitment, so it'll be a home and home. So as our football schedule will be very similar to this year. Except reverse the home and home. So you'll have the one trip up to a level which will be our longest trip that they can here this year. The other side, I thought the Wyoming League worked out extremely well.
Hard to argue.
That's good. I heard good things about it.
So this will be it for the next 2 years. One thing I found interesting, if you look at those numbers, and when Mr. Taylor and I went down to the reclassification meeting, it shines, but of the 2A schools, in 1A, 7 of 29 are either charter or private. In 2A, 14 of the 25 schools are either private or charter. And it's made 2A pretty rough. So if you look at the region, regions there, North Summit is in a region where they've got to travel. They're down to San Juan, Grand County, Gunnison. I was teasing Mr. Holmes and saying, well, yeah, you could be a lot closer if you went to all these 2 regions that are made up of privates, but it's so hard because they don't have sub-varsity sometimes, all that other stuff. But 2A is really dominated by, it's almost half.
I don't think they should be allowed in if they don't have sub-varsity, if they're on TV. I don't think they should be allowed in.
It's tough.
It was an interesting thing to see ICS petition to go up. I think that's sort of like the book stat.
If you look at ICS numbers, they're
Way small.
really smaller. Your buddy leaving that.
Pretty sure he is.
That's why I was just talking to Jenny about, like, I don't understand what these numbers, so 115 is our enrollment, but there's no way that like Taviona, 36.
That's just in the upper.
That's it. So 1 and 2A, if you look, it's 10, 11, and 12. But then when you jump into, I think it's 3A up from, it jumps, that first column is 11 and 12. And the next column's 10 through that, I think. I
So
can't remember if that
115
jumps
is
on
our
three.
10, 11, 12.
I can't remember if
But
that jumps
still,
on.
so Taviona is
Yeah,
only,
Taviona is small. Yeah,
It's amazing what Taviona does in basketball based on how small they are.
seriously.
I
Well,
think
then
he
like,
told me he's gonna graduate in class of 12.
you know, you have Lake Powell High School, 1, West Ridge Academy, 0. That's like, those numbers, right? Okay. Yeah.
Lake Powell, I'm sure is. Lake Powell will be the G12, whoever happens to be there. And Bullfrog doesn't have Marina anymore. But no,
Wait, I thought Lake Powell High School was in Page. Oh, it's in.
Lake Powell's back on by Bullfrog.
Fuck with that.
Been there.
I thought Page was.
Page, so Page is in Arizona, and right across from Page, you got, what, water or something.
Big Water.
Big Water. And I think Big Water might be. Or, no, I don't know.
Yes.
Okay. But some of that county, like you said, they can go wherever they want. Those Cedars and that, they can use what you say or have you.
And as far as UHSAA goes, because of the open enrollment, you can go anywhere you want. The state. So you declare you're eligible to get a school, then you're supposed to stay there.
Oh, then there's no school there, right?
Like in a 3-year high school, those big high schools. So if you're living in Brighton's geographic area, if you want to go to Skyline, and you start there as a sophomore. It's just really switch over.
I guess Logan, I didn't realize this, Cache Valley, they get kids going all across to play for whoever they want. Start the freshman year, living there at AAU, coaching.
A lot of recruiting happening at that
That
level then.
7th and 8th grade, they're recruiting heavy. You know,
It's terrible in a way.
Yeah, it is.
And it's one reason. Jerry, Jerry's board of trustees, we talked a lot. Why there's even a need for regions, because everything's based on the RPI now, so why do we even get hung up on that? But a lot of that's driven by the bigger schools, because if you, those west side schools want to have a full schedule, teams will plan, and they know they're hardly ever going to compete for a state championship because their kids they're good, they're getting recruited by the east side schools. So those west side schools are left of hardly. If you look at the state finals, 5A and 6A, there's hardly ever, I guess, Bingham would be considered a west side school, but Hunter, Granger, Cypress, Cottonwood. Watch Channel 2 News during state tournament time, and you'll not hear any of those because their kids are being recruited away from them. It's too bad. It's terrible.
I don't know, because I haven't really thought terribly hard, because we don't really have to worry about it. I don't know if you're going, we should let them do it.
And I agree.
But you gotta move to that location.
And they, after you once declared, then you do. Open enrollment says you can start out anywhere you want.
well, you don't have to move. Right, those guys stay, they don't have, they could,
If they,
But if they had declared eligibility. to
yes,
school,
they
then
did have to move. At 9th grade, I mean, you could send a kid.
let's recruit some local kids over here.
And again, it comes back to the parent choice thing, and we got the right to send our kid wherever they want. And they just lost the legislature is way into parent choice.
Next thing you know, we're gonna have a transfer portal.
Probably will happen.
That's gonna ruin college sports. When it's done. But that, I might not be right. I'm not quite the prophet you are on. Well, I said, what do you think about the
I don't know for sure.
I'm sorry, I was just being flippant on your profit ability.
Okay.
You're on my profit.
I don't have any.
Or profitability.
So I did look up the day on the Hill. It's February 6th, 9 a.m.
That's like one of the last days. I mean,
It's the middle.
oh, is it?
Session starts the day after Martin Luther King Day, so I think it's like the 16th.
Martin Luther King Day is the 16th.
Subject, but is that 1,200 students in Wasatch, is that 10 to 12?
Well, I think, double check, but the column jumps over to 11 through 12. Look at the top. So 1 and 2A is 10 through 12. And then I think on 3A, that first column.
It's 4A.
Is it 4A?
Yeah, it's 4A. 4A, 5A, 6A is 11 through 12. 1A, 2A, 3A is 10 through 12.
Took me a minute. What is it?
Oh, so that says
I think Wasatch, aren't they 4A? So that'd be 11.
they're 5.
I don't know why they did that, because the right column for 4A, 5A, 6A is 10 through 12 on the right column.
I don't either. I'm sure there was a reason, but I don't know what it was.
Yeah, 2A or 3A when you went 2A.
They got
we
their
were
own.
two.
There's about 100 kids graduating class. Pretty tight.
Yeah, that's wrong. Anything else on UHSAA? What was the reasoning? Other than they just don't want to fight with the private schools to keep private schools mixed in. Because I agree with them. Like I think the private schools should be their own classification.
Yeah, I can give you my perception of why. Again, the legislature does not want to mess with private schools. In the last, not the meeting we were at, but in the last meeting where all this was finalized, Larry Ferguson from Washington County made a passion plea that it needs to be studied and we've got to figure out something better to do with them. And his proposal is to try and put them all in one. But all the privates and charters be in their own deal and have.
They might even have two different classifications or whatever.
Right, an A and a B within the private. So it got proposed again, and we've been proposing that for a long time. But it never goes because it gets, the legislature just stops it. And I don't know exactly why the legislature. It's not UHSA. UHSA gets blamed for stomping it. But it gets stomped by legislators.
So basically UHSA is forced by legislators to
Not treat them any
Include 'em.
differently.
My perception is just what you said a minute ago. The attractiveness of a charter or private is you get to have your cake and eat it too. And so it's the same thing here. Well, we want to still play sports and be part of UHSA, which is the High School Athletic Association. We want to still be a high school. We want to have our own set of rules, but we still want to be able to participate in all. Put us up They'll segregate us. They won't be segregated.
But that's the problem that I see, that was like, they already have their own set of rules, right? They can recruit like crazy. Right? But all the other public schools, you can't, well, although I guess that freshmen can recruit 7th, 8th freshmen, but after that, they can't. And I guess it's probably, this is probably one of the reasons why they allowed that 7th, 8th freshman to be recruited. Essentially, why they allow that open enrollment is.
Okay. Bridgerland. Over there, we've had a couple of meetings, I guess, since our last meeting. Took a tour of the health science building, so maybe you get a chance, go over there. They've got it closed down. That's a nice building.
I've been over there since it was rain.
Gonna be way nice. They're in the process of converting over from credit hours to credits. So you won't get a certificate, you get credits. That way it matches with universities and. So,
You have an estimation on where that would be a heavy lift.
I knew you were gonna ask that. It's either 23 or might be 24. And that actually.
Okay, but pretty soon, next
Yeah.
couple of years.
Yeah, in the next couple of years, they're working on getting all that squared away, so instead of certificates, you'll get X number of credits for the program. So, we're working on that. They got things moving. And that was a great tour this morning. That was good. Good to see what we're doing.
Should build us out on our score clock. We went over there and they helped us.
You better explain more on
Yeah,
that.
what do you mean?
Now, Mr. Taylor, he pulled off a miracle the other day.
It was a mess. So the console that you control the score clock with has a charging port. It's a USB-B port. It broke off the chip inside. So without it, it doesn't charge, and it's uniquely linked to the clock. And so without it, you didn't play.
Don't have a shot clock.
No, not the regular clock.
Like the scoreboard.
Scoreboard, yes.
Oh.
So we were in trouble. So we went over and they don't have those anywhere. And so we went to Bridgerland and they were able to tear the monitor apart, old monitor, get the chip out, use their soldering iron and melt that USB charging unit out of the chip set and clean up the old art chip set with their soldering gun and put it back in.
Wow.
It's cool. They really helped us out.
Oh,
Ready to cancel.
Anything we can do so we're not so vulnerable another time?
You'd about have to buy another
Scoreboards.
for each gym. Yeah. Maybe, and then we, I guess have a backup. It might set them off all along.
I give Mr. Taylor a lot of credit, because when he told me he's gonna go to Logan and get it fixed, I'm like, good for you. I don't know what I'd have done, nowhere to uncle probably. Then he got over there and none of the private businesses would help you. So he had
They
a-
didn't have it, and no one does it. Just throw away and buy new. Nobody fixes stuff. It's good.
it's pretty good. That's a good story.
So, President of the Board, thank you.
Pass that along.
Yeah.
Impressive.
They really help.
That tour this morning is quite impressive. Like,
Yeah, well,
that's good stuff.
And again, it was so fun for me that the students were able to articulate so well what was happening. Well, just like Mr. Peterson told me to show you this.
Yeah. Turned out really good. Okay, January board meeting.
So this doesn't have to happen, but if we do it for the next week,
24.
24, would that be okay?
Sounds like that, well, is that gonna look with any GLC stuff? I guess it would, because you said Thursday, Fridays.
You have letters for admin that day.
Time to skip back.
It's 8 to 3.
I mean, I could make it work the other way, but that would just be better for me if I could do that.
Good. That's a good one.
You
We
could
can
probably
zoom
do it,
in.
yeah.
Yeah, he's.
The 24th.
That's okay. All right. Go back to 6 o'clock.
Yeah, that should work. Okay.
Now, on 4, 6 o'clock. As far as agenda items go, thought of this. We up for, we have a new president, so we have in that spot.
I think it's 2 years.
It's been 2 years.
And then ones that were elected this time will need to be resworn in. Those 2 agenda items. And then a third agenda item. We'll try and have, last year when we extended the cleaning contract, we said we'd get that up for bid. So we'll come preliminary with what the RFP looked like last time. Get reports. They put on what you want the RFP this time. February, we'll be able to get that RFP out, stuff back.
Where are we at?
We up just, I was trying to just sneak away. From
Yeah.
I didn't want to be.
Us two, yes, we're up in January.
You know, Pete, you can't sneak anything by Pete.
Well, I have a chance of being right. But it's been yes or no.
Yeah,
So
we're up.
that's when we talked about. So,
Renewing our contract.
It rolls around fast. though.
They roll around fast.
yeah, the mission feels not like that for
How much time do we have before?
40 minutes.
Can we go into closed session for just really short?
Absolutely.
Talk about 2 little things I'd like to bring up. I wish Weston would. sit here, but-
Is he coming back?
But no one needs to leave. Everyone, just 2 kind of staffing things I wanted to just mention. real quick.
Tell me to stop this.
I'll make a motion. One motion. Yeah. Motion to go into closed session.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion
That's
carries.
the quarter up.
Well, we gotta
I'm
say
gonna
who's
say
in.
We're going into closed session and present are Mrs. Corney and Mrs. Johnson, Mr. McKee, Mr. Lamb, Supper Wamsley, Mr. Corney, Mr. Sadie, Superintendent Lamborn, Principal Larson.
tech going.
Ready?
Okay, coming out of closed session. Present are Ms. Corney and Ms. Johnson, Mr. McKee, Mr. Lamb, Eric Walmsley, Mr. Corney, Mr. Savy, Superintendent Lamore, Principal Larson, and Principal Taylor. After some discussion, I would accept a motion to approve the name again, Leslie Argyle as
Math specialist at Southbridge.
math specialist at Southridge Elementary.
I'll make that motion.
Okay, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion adjourned. Okay, got a motion? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, we're adjourned.
Hey, we'll be with the little kids, so this will be fun.
Thank you all. Happy holidays,
Thanks.
Merry Christmas.